Good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, September 20, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order. School committee had begun its meeting actually at 7 o'clock in executive session. We've just adjourned that for tonight, and we're now opening into the open session. So welcome all, and thank you for joining us. As we do for all meetings, please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, as we do at all meetings, to remind ourselves of our mission statement. It is the vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Under public comment, item number 6 on our agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the committee on any topic, whether it's on the agenda tonight or not? They're welcome to do so at this time. Anyone here in the studio? Anyone at home on Zoom? Do we know? Well, seeing none. Okay, no public comment tonight. That's fine. Okay. We do have, without objection from the committee, to take something, to place something on the agenda that wasn't on before. We have our, with the beginning of the new school year and the new school committee year, I'd like to welcome members of the Student Advisory Council who are going to be with us for the rest of the year. That was not on tonight's agenda, but without objection, I'd like to add them into tonight's agenda and to introduce the student rep. Actually, why don't you, the three of you that are here in studio tonight, please join us, and we have one of our advisors, student advisors, on Zoom with us. So, ladies, welcome. I was just about to read your names, but I'd rather you introduce yourself, identify yourself, what grade you're in, and please begin your report. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Laura Mangarelli, and I'm a junior.
I'm Vanessa Westlake, and I'm also a junior.
I'm Molly Baronato, and I'm a senior.
I'm Isabella Burcham, and I'm a senior.
Great. Well, welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on being the, or at least some of the school committee our representatives this year. So please, how's the year going so far? How's things happening?
Great. Bella's actually going to start us off,
sweet.
I believe.
Yes, things are going well. So for academics for today, college visits have begun at Wakefield. Over the next 3 days, we have Thomas College, St. John's University, Dean, Riviere University, Stony Brook, College of the Holy Cross, Roger Williams University, Wentworth, and Curry. There's a link to the college visit calendar on the guidance page on the WHMS website. And WHMS will be hosting the SATs on Saturday, October 1st. The deadline to register is today through College Board. And I think Molly's gonna go next.
Yes. Just some other updates. So back to school night happened tonight. It should just be finishing up now. Parents, guardians, and caregivers followed their students' day 4 schedule plus their C block at the end. And this involves meeting teachers and learning about their classes. We also have an early release day tomorrow where students will be released at 10:50 a.m. Last week we had our first fire drill, and in the next couple weeks and months we'll be starting ALICE training, and this training is going to reflect pre-COVID times as well. And lastly, the senior class is having a popcorn fundraiser to raise money for events like Senior Week and prom, and anyone interested can reach out to Mr. Tolios or any senior. That's all we have.
Great. Do we have any questions for our representatives tonight? Yes, Dr. Piscato.
Less of a question, but more of a comment. Thank you for, taking on this leadership role and being able and willing to serve in this way. I think a lot of times the groups kind of handle themselves differently over my experience, and certainly updates is an important part, I think, of the commitment or the role that you play. But I certainly encourage you to opine and share your thoughts on any of the issues that come up and participate as the chair will allow, because your perspectives are really valuable on having been in the system for a while and representing the student voice. So you don't have to limit yourself just to updates, but as you see the types of topics we're talking about, we very much want to hear your perspective. So please, contribute when you feel comfortable doing so. But I look forward to working with you this year. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had a question. So this is our first non-COVID year in recent memory. Does it feel different? What's it like so far?
I would say it definitely feels different, but in the best way possible. Yes, I'm so happy, especially as a senior, that this year is getting off to a normal start, and I hope it stays that way.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you.
One of the things that I was going to say, and I couldn't agree with Dr. Piscato more, was exactly that. Do not hesitate to bring forward thoughts, ideas, concerns. Student voice is incredibly important to the school community, and it's incredibly important to us as decision makers within that realm. So please do not feel that your role should be limited to what happened last week in the calendar, and that's not important, because it is. But please take some initiative, if you will. Take some leadership chops and bring forward thoughts, concerns, frustrations, to make sure that students do have the opportunity to be heard and validated in your concerns as student leaders. With that in mind, as I'm sure you're aware, that the high school administration will be soon sending out a student survey on the next high school logo. So certainly certainly take your role as building leaders in heart, and to encourage the student body to participate in that survey. It doesn't matter, and if I can say this on behalf of it doesn't matter to us how the vote goes, but votes are important in voting and participating and having that student voice heard. It's a non-binding vote, as you guys may know. It's ultimately going to be superintendent's recommendation, and the 7 of us decide. But we wanted to pause on actually voting last June, so there's time for students in grades 8 through 12 to participate in hearing and seeing the 3 finalists for logos, and so please take that on. Be the student leaders that you are, and get people voting and encouraging participation in that realm. It will matter. It will certainly be an important part of student voice, and in deciding what imagery students want to wear on jackets and jerseys and hoodies and athletic equipment. So it's the next probably important thing that's happening within the social cultural realm of the high school. So thanks. Yes, Dr. Lyons.
I'm wondering, Molly, thank you for your feedback on how the school year has started. I'm wondering if we can hear from Vanessa, Lauren, and Bella on how the school year has started for you 3, and what any highlights you'd like to share with us.
I'll start. I think this year we've only had like 10 days, but it's been really great so far, and it's felt really good to have like a normal school day and not have to go one way in the hallways or wear masks or sit 6 feet apart from your friends. And it's good to have like a real normal high school experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It alleviates like a lot of stress that we had with COVID, and just like being able to connect with our friends and students and teachers.
Great. Bella?
Yeah, I think a big highlight for me is being able to see my friends and my teachers' faces without masks. I know they were important at the time, and they're still important now, but having that element to non-COVID or less COVID times is really nice.
you can miss a little bit with the masks, I think, right? And just kind of seeing someone's face.
That's right.
So that's great. Can you share a little bit about lunches? How that has started off?
Yeah, so I think that lunches are off to a good start. I think that it definitely feels good, kind of going off of what they were all saying. Just the camaraderie and the togetherness, the feeling of a community, and I feel like the cafeteria and lunch is like such a great opportunity for kids to like take a break in the school day and just kind of be with people they maybe don't see during classes and everything, and to, again, even though, as Bella said, it was very important at the time to not be confined to sitting where like there's a sticker on the chair or something like that is very nice.
So I asked the question about lunch because we have a new food service director, and we are really interested in your feedback and how things are going. Do you like the food? Are there things that you would like to see more of, less of? Things like that. But we can talk more about this at another time. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we can certainly touch base offline. You guys are more than welcome at central office anytime. It'd be great to see you. It'd be a great part of any of our days. So
Did the menu change?
the menu hasn't changed radically, but you know it's still the same. It's still not reduced, but it's still. You always say it's not. Nothing's free, right?
No, it's
and
not.
so
It's a funded.
it's so
funded lunch.
the lunch program's funded, right? So that's continuing this year. So we're interested in how that's working, but we're also interested in how you feel about the food, and we're just looking to really improve, and really everything that we're doing, but that area as well. Yeah. So it's only day 10, right? So
Yeah.
easy questions. SAT questions next school committee.
Thank you very much.
Well, ladies, thank you again very, very much. We look forward to a great year and look forward to some great interactions from you. Thank you. Thank you for taking this work on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we know you have a commitment, so you have to go. So
Yes.
Homework.
yeah. Bye, Bella. Thank you.
Tomorrow's half day.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, item number 7 on the agenda, the consent agenda. We have a motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of the school committee meeting of September 13, 2022, and accept the minutes of the school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meeting of September 8, 2022, as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes,
One
Mr. Ingles.
edit is in the minutes of our last meeting. There's one typo, which says that our goal setting for FY24 would be Wednesday, September 12th. It should say October 12th. That's all.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so with that change, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 8, Chair's comments and action items. We're going to move past the comments and updates. We'll be discussing those throughout the meeting and at the end of my comments. Item number B, discussion and vote on the renewal of the superintendent's employment contract. This has been, let me just sort of phrase to the community what type of work that has been going on for the last three months or so. Took a little bit of a break during the summer through no one's desire other than just people's schedules and summertime. But we began in earnest a conversation about renewing Dr. Lyons' employment contract with Wakefield Public Schools back in the spring. And we wanted very much to be able to open the new school year, or at least as close to the opening of the new school year as we could, with some security for our chief executive officer and for some security for the administrative team that report and work with the superintendent, as well as, frankly, for all of the work that needs to be done in our community are moving forward. This is certainly something that this school committee, and I think the prior school committee, took very seriously. Something that was Dr. Lyons certainly took very seriously, and we took our time. We took our time, and we were quite thoughtful in the negotiations and the deliberations. I certainly want to give every member of the committee an opportunity to speak once the motion is made. But I just wanted to sort of frame what has been occurring. I think some very productive and earnest conversations have occurred not only just among the committee but with Dr. Lyons and about the future of the Wakefield Public Schools, the direction of the Wakefield Public Schools, and the absolute needs. We need to be on a path of improvement. I think we are on a path of improvement, and we want to seek to make sure that every day is better than yesterday's. And I think Dr. Lyons shares that we. Will the Wakefield Public Schools ever be done? Probably not. But certainly having someone with the depth and breadth of experience that Dr. Lyons has, sort of leading us in getting this issue addressed at the beginning of the school year, leaves plenty of opportunity for the work ahead. And we've got an incredibly busy year. We've got some serious concerns that face the district. We've got some serious issues that need to be addressed, and I think we're in good hands to move forward. We've got we're going to be beginning negotiations with the teachers union on a successor collective bargaining agreement. We're going to be bringing to the townspeople the very important issue of building a new high school. So there's a lot of things that happen, and we need to have our leadership team in place and engaged. So that's sort of hopefully, framing a bit of the types of serious conversations that the committee and the superintendent have had in the last couple of months about this work and about our collective unanimous desire to see you remain with us for the foreseeable future. So what I'd like to do is there is a motion. We have two motions actually. One dealing with contract amendment for fiscal year 23, which is the year we're in, and the other for moving forward with a longer-term employment agreement. So what I'd like to do is like to make one motion at a time, give the committee an opportunity to discuss or say whatever they may, and then take a vote on each motion independently. So, Ms. Lehman,
Okay.
first motion, please.
Motion 1. Move that the school committee reappoint Dr. Douglas J. Lyons as Wakefield Superintendent of Schools for the 4-year term beginning July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2027, and to approve the contractual terms of employment as presented.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion. Anyone of the public, this is a public document. They are readily available on as part of tonight's school committee packet. So moving forward, motion made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Okay, second motion.
I feel bad no one said anything, but we talked a lot amongst each other. But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Motion 2, move that the school committee adjust the salary and compensation for Superintendent of Schools Dr. Douglas J. Lyons, providing for a market adjustment consistent with superintendent salaries in comparable and neighboring districts, Dr. Lyons' experience, performance, and professional competency here in Wakefield, and a base adjustment in recognition of his having earned his doctorate degree. These combined factors support a salary adjustment to $202,500 effective July 1, 2022 as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Dr. Piscadlo.
So I was planning on saying something, so I figured I'd wait till this one. But just, I think that this is a recognition, I think, for the work that's been done, where we hope to be going. I look forward to working with you for as long as the public will allow. And, like we had said, I think there's a lot that we still want to do, a lot of places we still want to go. And I think having a leadership to bring us there is really important. And, the doctorate, the additional things that you've done, I think is important. So I was happy to support this.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have you, Doug. So we're looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Kevin Fontenelle.
Yeah, I would like to reiterate Kevin's statement that I think that we definitely have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we definitely have great improvements that we want to bring to Wakefield school system. And we're, as a committee, we're fully confident that you're the one that's going to be the leader to bring us through this. And I just want to say, and we said this during our discussions over the last few weeks. It's been such a weird last few years where we're evaluating or looking at a superintendent, how you've navigated the COVID years, and now we're moving out of it. I just want to say, just from one anecdotal example, and I know that there's so many different tasks that you have to do as a town superintendent, but I feel that your communication with the parents, the weekly COVID calls, this is just one of many things, obviously, of your responsibilities. But I think it definitely shows that communication with the town is definitely one of your priorities. It shows you're brave enough to be, public facing and be able to answer questions directly. Any questions that can be fielded to you. And I definitely, I know I appreciate it. I don't know if I would be able to do it nearly as competently as you, just be able to field questions at me on all those Thursday Zoom calls. Yeah, just one of many examples of things that we have seen and appreciate.
Thank you.
Stephen.
I sort of, also to what Kevin was saying about the weekly Zoom calls was such an insightful thing to sort of start doing and be able to answer questions from parents in real time in a time when everyone was feeling really nervous, and then to sort of recognize the value in them and that those weren't the only questions that you were getting, and continuing them on just shows sort of a level of connection that I think we've come to appreciate, not just your connection to the schools but to the community, which has been just paramount. I see that also in sort of, we've talked just a little bit about your doctorate work, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's in sort of how minorities access education and what their experiences in that space is. And I think that you had this, that's our community. We're a changing community. We're becoming more diverse. We're a multitude of different people, that our landscape isn't what it was 10 years ago. And you went out and sought further education in that space that you knew that you were going to find yourself in. I think that shows a lot of sort of passion in what you do, and I think we're fortunate that we're going to continue the relationship, and I think we're all sort of in the positive for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy.
So this is a bit awkward because while I agree with everything that everyone said, and I enjoy working with Doug, and I know that he comes to work every day and wants to move the district forward, and I respect everything he does. I agree with him most of the time. I'm going to vote against the motion for two reasons. I'm going to take it like a conservative approach. And within the current contract, there's a section that talks about regular compensation. It's section 5 and under salary, and it says that the salary may be otherwise adjusted by the committee each year of this agreement following the committee's review of the superintendent's performance as outlined in section 4. So there is no review, and there's no data for me to justify the salary increase. And the review, and we're going to do a review, I know that, in the fall. If this motion passes, and I think it will, because I'm only one of 7 votes, I'd like the committee to consider including language in the amendment such as the superintendent Lyons has showed successful performance in FY21 and 22, but due to the impacts of COVID, the committee did not have the opportunity to assess the superintendent, something like that. And the other reason is because at town meeting, the taxpayers voted in favor of the current salary for FY23, which is $188,752. It's actually its own line item in the budget. It's on page 48. So it's hard for me to justify a $13,748 raise. It's not that I'm not in favor. I would have done it in year one of FY24, done the market adjustment then, because that was consistent with the other contracts we've done. I would have been in favor of increasing the salary this FY23 for $5,000, because that was the tuition reimbursement. So I'm sorry.
So is that a motion to the, an amendment to the
No,
motion?
that's just my opinion.
No, but you had made reference to making an amendment to the motion.
Oh, if you
Is that-
want, no, I was saying I would like the committee to consider when they do the amendment, which we haven't signed yet, to just include some language, like to justify that Superintendent Lyons is getting an increase, even though there's no evaluation, because it does say that you can justify it with the committee's review of performance, but we don't have that. So if we could just note I can show you an example. Linfield did it with their superintendent. It's just a paragraph at the top that just explains why there was no review. That's all.
Okay, so
But
if
you are
if-
really recommending an amendment to the current motion to insert that into the documentation, correct, Amy?
Well, I guess, okay, because we said as presented. Okay,
Right.
then, so I'm going to amend, but I don't have the exact language that we would use. Is
So
that,
we would kind of need that.
okay, then don't put it in.
Okay, well.
I'm just giving
You
my-
have every right to make any motion you feel. I don't want to hold up your desire to make a motion.
I'm not going to make a motion.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, seeing none, I would just add, in addition to what folks have said around the table, that the type of complications in the last couple of years, I believe, have really, through the COVID years and all of the controversies therein, really, you're a man of character, of integrity, and in due respect to my colleague, I think there is probably no public figure in Wakefield who has been more exposed and perhaps more publicly evaluated, even not by the 7 members sitting around this table now or in the recent past, but by your performance and by your outreach and by your relationships. That being said, I certainly think that the type of leadership that you've provided has been very, very strong and very committed to the town of Wakefield and, more importantly, to the students of Wakefield. One of the things that I know you said over and over again throughout our 2 years of active COVID was to make sure that we are continuing to provide the best quality resources to students and teachers, to be able to provide students and teachers with what they need to make classroom experience work. Even in the worst COVID days, when clearly classroom experiences were very challenged, I don't think you ever let up on the desire for quality and the desire to insist that our teachers be supported, that our teachers be respected, and that our students be thought of first. So I just want to thank you for the very difficult leadership challenges of the last couple of years, and join my colleagues in their comments.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
I just want to thank Tom. You did a lot of the work to lead the meetings as far as bringing different, data from other districts and putting together spreadsheets, which helped us talk through. And it was a thoughtful conversations. There were many. I think every member was able to share what they needed to share, not be judged. I know I flip-flop back and forth about my decision. So, thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, motion made, seconded, and discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Okay. Congratulations again, Dr. Lyons, on. Okay, item number C, 8C on the agenda, the discussion and presentation of remarks, rather, on the annual superintendent's evaluation process. I shared with committee members via email late this afternoon, but we're prepared to announce what the evaluation process would look like. Committee members may recall, even though this wasn't as this committee is presently constituted, in August of 2021, the school committee had its retreat at that time, its annual goal planning and retreat session at the Galvin Middle School, and set in motion what FY22's evaluation process for the superintendent would look like. We put in motion that there would be in the fall an introduction of goals for both the superintendency as well as the district as a whole. We put in motion that in the winter time, in the winter months, I believe it was March, the superintendent would present a sort of self-assessment of how he is doing at the midway point of the year, and then the school committee would have an evaluation in the fall. We spent, I'm sure as members recall, a fair amount of time deciding when in the school year is the best time to have the superintendent evaluation. Do we do it in May? Do we do it in June? Do we do it before an election? Do we do it after election? Do we do it over the summer when no one's watching? Do we do it, we really had a lot of good conversation around when's the best time. So we are following through on a commitment that the prior school committee made in August of 2021 that says we're going to have the superintendent's evaluation in the fall of 2022. And that would be an evaluation that would speak to the goals of the district and the superintendent for last school year and the beginning and opening of this school year. So with that in mind, the process that we're on is tonight obviously is the announcement of a series of dates through the month of October, which would lead to the evaluation process, or the public evaluation rather. So beginning on Wednesday, October 5, the school committee will have a professional development workshop led by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees with regard to the Mass General Law's expectations around administrator evaluation. That there is a rubric and there is a guideline set out by DESE within education reform laws about how administrators, license and licensed administrators, and in fact all licensed educators get evaluated. So we're going to learn that from our professional association about how best to conduct that to make it sure that it's a lawfully done and a locally and culturally appropriate evaluation. So that's Wednesday, October 5. The next 7 days or so will be an opportunity for individual school committee members to set one-on-one meetings with the superintendent. And I encourage each of us to take that time, shoot Doug an email, try to make sure that your calendars are in sync, but all the concerns and the thoughts that we feel are appropriate to share, this is our time to do that, to have that sort of conversational exchange, us as elected representatives of the community sharing thoughts and concerns with the superintendent, also an opportunity for the superintendent to provide feedback to us. So please, during that time, during the period of October 6th through October 17th, I encourage, please, set that one-on-one time with Doug and go in and have those conversations and evaluations. You then would provide a series of notes as Dorothy Presser, our state liaison, will share with us during the training, that we do not provide 7 evaluations, we provide 1 evaluation. So what each of us have an opportunity to do is to contribute to a collaborative evaluative document. So you would then provide myself, or annually, we would provide the chair with your evaluation notes and whatever your rubric may be, or whatever the contents of your rubric may be. I then and that will then be due to me on October 18th. And then I will take a couple of days to assemble everyone's thoughts into a single document, and then share that back with the committee. And then that would be shared with the community at a public meeting, a public session on Tuesday, October 25. So over the course of, something will be happening each week in October with regard to building up to the superintendent's public evaluation. I think it's important to note, both for the community members and the public, that evaluating the superintendent's performance is not an eligible reason to go into executive session. So we shall never go into executive session to discuss either the rubric or our thoughts. The community has to be able to hear both concerns and compliments and expectations. So there will not be an executive session at all about the collection of this data or the sharing back of this data. And I think that's an incredibly transparent thing for, that's a state law, it's not just us, but I think it's incredibly transparent means by which the school committee and the superintendent can work together within the public realm. I think that's an important piece. So October 5 for our school committee professional development. Between October 6 and 17, one-on-one meetings with the superintendent to develop your own notes and share those notes with me on October 18. I will then take a couple of days to assemble those and create a single instrument. And then the public evaluation on Tuesday, October 25. Okay? And Tuesday, October 25 is our second regular school committee for the month of October, so that none of these are really special meetings at all. We're not calling anything unique in that way. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Kevin.
Just because the timeline's pretty tight
Yep.
between October 6th and October 18th, just one question. I know that we're going to get the training. Is it October 5th?
Yes.
That we're getting the training. I was wondering if there was if any of us wanted to get any evidence that we thought would be germane to the evaluation before the one-on-one meeting. Would it be appropriate to email Doug or have a conversation with him to just give him some time? Be like, we're looking for this piece of evidence or this piece of evidence that maybe we would want, instead of just having like that one-on-one interview. I could just maybe foresee. Maybe thinking about 2 or 3 things to ask for. Would that be appropriate to do before?
Yeah, no, I think that's entirely appropriate. So two other things will happen. One will happen within moments, is that Doug is providing a self-assessment with regard to how last school year ended up with regard to the goals that he set out a year ago now. That will be part of the superintendent's report tonight, as well as to share with us some opening of school goals for FY23. So that's number one. So we'll have some of that. Anything that you may want to dig a little deeper in, please ask the superintendent that. And secondly, I didn't get to do it in today's end of day email, but I will push out the rubric, the DESI rubric that we're to use. So between, I think, what Doug and Kara are going to share tonight, as well as reading through the rubric, as well as our training, I think we'll get some good points on how the professional evaluation is intended to be conducted. But yes, please. And with this announcement sort of now, there's no reason to wait until October 6th to ask to get on Doug's calendar. Just make that happen as soon as you can. Anything else? Any other questions or thoughts, concerns? No? Doug, anything to share before I change topics?
I think Tom's spot on. I think if time is of the essence, right? I think we can meet in person, or we can meet via Zoom, whatever's most convenient for you. We can talk on the phone. Any questions that you might have, you can put in print. If there's artifacts or evidence or data that you would like to know more about, and you'll hear quite a bit from us this evening, right? We have a lot of irons in the fire. Our goals are pretty robust, and so I'd like you to kind of consider the information that we're sharing this evening. And if any part of it kind of sticks out for you as you're eager to know more, you'd like to have a conversation, please do not hesitate to reach out individually, and we can certainly fill that information in. Right? And I will also recommend gently that Miss Presser, Dorothy Presser from MASC, who I believe she's doing the training.
She is, yes.
She will also have some, she has years of experience as a school committee member and as a trainer with MASC. She will also have some insight into, how best to ask the questions or get to the heart of the items and information that you're most interested in.
So I have a question.
Yeah, Amy.
I'm listening, and we're talking about the evaluation, which is really the FY22 evaluation, right?
Yes.
But we're talking about the goals, which is early FY23. But we're not using the goals for 23 to do the 22 evaluation, right?
No.
Two separate things. Okay.
Yep.
Just want to be sure.
So the way we've broken out the presentation tonight is we are sharing district goals and we're sharing superintendent goals. So we'll talk about what the goal was, progress that we've made toward that goal, and what kind of areas of growth for us will look like moving forward. Right? So it's kind of like goal attainment. This was the goal. This is how we've progressed. And moving forward, these are items or bullets that we'd like you to consider, or that we will be looking at that also align with school improvement plans. And we think will align beautifully with subcommittee goals as well. But we still have to work on that.
Okay, good. The only thing to make note of next is our school committee retreat, which is a goal-setting process, which sort of, as the dominoes flow, it's appropriate that we hear tonight what the administration's goals are with progress over last year's goals, looking forward into FY23. So we'll have some goals that we need to set as a committee, and we will be seeking to empower and charge the subcommittees with what their work needs to be toward the larger goals. And so that session, the annual retreat, is scheduled for Tuesday, October 5. No, excuse me, I take that back. My bad. Wednesday, October 12th. Sorry about that.
We were going to do it in one night.
Yeah, we're going to do it all in one night. We're going to power through. No, the retreat and goal setting is Wednesday, October 12th. So we do have a busy month of October, but hopefully we have parsed things out in small enough chunks to be efficient and not to lose the crowd. So I'm going to stop at that point so we don't and move on to the superintendent's remarks and reports. Dr. Lyons.
Before I get into comments and updates, I'd like to invite Brendan to the table to give an update on athletics, so he can kind of get on his way, because I know we have a contest going.
Yeah,
is it over, Bren?
Volleyball was still playing, but they're probably over by now.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a busy day. We had everything: boys soccer, girls soccer, volleyball, cross country. It was all going today, so it was a happening place at Wakefield High School today.
Great.
But
As it should be.
Yes, thank you for having me back. Excited to be back here again for another fall season. Just coming off last year, reflecting off last year, it was just an amazing year. Honestly, one of the best years we've ever had here at Wakefield High School. Sometimes in most schools, usually each season, one or two teams might make the tournament and the school gets excited and rallies around them. Last year, almost every single one of our teams made the tournament. Every spring team made it, and just about every winter team made it, and almost every fall team made it as well. And quite impressive. We had two boys spring track won the state championship, girls cross country won the state championship, boys cross country won the all-state championship. Wrestling came 1.5 points away from winning the state championship. Dance came in second in the state. And it was pretty cool. Over the summertime, the Boston Globe gives an award. They add up the winning percentages or the win-loss records for every sport in your entire school, and they give an award for the top school in the entire state. And we didn't win it, but they reached out to me to congratulate us that we came in the top 10, which is pretty impressive. I'm not sure if Wakefield's ever even come in the top 10. According to the Boston Globe stats last year, our teams finished a combined 174, 120, and 10. Good for close to about a 60% winning percentage, which is pretty impressive when you think of all the teams every single season. But even beyond that, one of the things that makes me most proud is just seeing our kids have success and move on and have success after Wakefield High School. And super proud to report back that a lot of our graduating seniors that went on to play sports in college are already having success. Mike Boudreau's daughter being one of them, Abby Boudreau, who's doing amazing at LaSalle right now. Ashley Purcell's doing great things, soccer at Merrimack. So really special senior class last year, and it's going to be very hard to duplicate that success this year, but I'll say we're already off to a really great start. Boys soccer is off to one of the best starts in years. Lexington High School is consistently one of the best teams in the entire state. In game number 1, we beat them, defeated them for the first time since 1998. So it's been a long time coming. They went out after that. They beat Malden, they beat Wilmington, and just tonight while I was sitting here, I got the text. Melrose was supposedly the team to beat this year, and we just battled them to a 1-1 tie tonight. So really great start for boys soccer. Football team's off to a great start, 2-0. Boys and girls cross country had their first meet today, and I was talking to a few of our parents, and it's just it's ridiculous what they're able to do every year. I mean, we graduated, I think, 4 kids that went Division I last year off our teams, and it's like we don't rebuild in those sports; we just reload. It's amazing. They looked terrific today. Both teams won. And I honestly think both teams could be in the running for another state championship this year, which is pretty amazing. But all in all of our teams are off to a good start. Just happy for the hard work and effort of our kids over the summer. You talk about the success of the track program. They don't just show up and win. They put in the work. And if you live in Wakefield, I think anybody around town's seen them running around the lake all summer long. They work hard, and I always tell them hard work pays off. So super proud of our kids and excited for another hopefully successful year. So that's my sports update.
Can I make a comment? So
Yes.
just a separate comment, just about the culture that's been built around here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the compliments. But, this has happened in more than just field hockey. So Abby had a game up at Salem State, and the entire high school field hockey team went to see her play.
Yeah.
That's the kind of culture we've built around here, too. And that's way more important than the wins and losses at the end of the day. So we were very touched.
Yeah, absolutely. I always try to say our teams aren't just teams; they're like mini families. So that's what we're trying to do, and I'm happy to hear that report.
Brent, can you share with the committee how long you've been in this role?
I'm going on my 8th year, which is insane. I can't believe it. Time flies when you're having fun. So it feels like I was just teaching and coaching just yesterday, but going on my 8th year here, and very proud of my time here, and looking forward to hopefully many more years here.
Also working toward a doctorate?
I'm working towards a doctorate, yes. Northeastern University, so I finished up my coursework last school year, and I'm starting in on my dissertation. I got my first half of it done this summer, and waiting to hear back from IRB to start the second half of it. So
Better him than you are, Doug.
Absolutely.
Been there, yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brad.
Any
Awesome.
any other comments for Brendan? Great. Well, thank you, Brendan, for everything, and thank you, your
Brendan.
coaches and the assistant coaches and
Yes,
all the volunteers that make our athletic program hum.
definitely.
Thank you very much,
Awesome.
and come back and see us again.
Yes,
Thank you,
thanks so
Brendan.
much.
Much appreciated. So I'm going to jump back to A, with the permission of the chair, and start off with comments and updates. And then I think Kara and I are going to go over to the table. We could probably present side by side, so we're not going back and forth. down the length of this long table. But before we move, just in terms of comments and updates, first I'd like to say thank you for the support and for the kind words about the things that we've done, things we've achieved. And I say we because this hasn't been one person, one time, one moment. This work is very difficult to do. It's difficult to be a district leader. It's difficult to be a school leader. It's difficult to be a public school teacher, right? And so, when we see the Stronger Together shirts, that the union will wear, we consider ourselves part of the together, right? And I think it speaks to, we talk about core values, and Michael used an important phrase. I think the culture that's been created. I think the culture and the core values that are lived and embodied in the work that we do with kids every day, how we interact with kids, but also how the adults interact with one another. We make the weather, we make the place, right? And the school committee, this particular school committee is, we need to model for others how we want kids to act, how we want other adults and other groups to act as well. And I think we do that really well, right? We might not hear that, but being a school committee member, being an elected official, is a particularly tough space to be in. Every decision you make can be scrutinized and criticized. It's not different than being a superintendent. But I'll be honest with you. I'm grateful to be in Wakefield, and I genuinely appreciate the support. I genuinely appreciate that we can agree, we can disagree. I appreciate your words, Amy. I think you can give those words, but I know that you support the work with your whole heart. So I'm grateful. So thank you for all of the words in that area, and thank you for the new contract. It's much appreciated. And so I look forward to kind of taking that and using that as momentum as we move into our work with teachers, because that's going to be our next challenge in how we compensate teachers, how we resource teachers, and how we work with them to create a new contract for them, which is particularly important. Like I said, the people make the place. Our greatest resource are our human resources. It's our greatest resource, and you don't have to go far. In our district meetings, we talk about in HR, either you're being recruited or you're recruiting. We've had some really kind of great hires this year. We've had some people think about leaving who were trying to be recruited away that ended up staying with us. That I think speaks to, the culture that we're trying to create. But I do think it's going to take all of us, and I guess I just want to say thank you. So I'll leave it there, and we'll kind of move on with kind of the agenda. But any happy to answer any questions before I move on? No? Thank you. So just safety drill update. We are really kind of focusing on safety to get back to a level that we should be at. COVID kind of knocked our learning and our drills and our training with safety a little bit we're out of practice in that space. So we're getting back at it. We're creating a progression in September where we're looking at fire drills. We're doing fire drills. We will do shelter in place drills, and we will work on and start to educate our new students in all of our schools about what our ALICE drills look like. Our new faculty are doing this work as well. You've heard me talk about Liz Doucette and kind of the work she's doing helping with induction with our new teachers. And so she's been instrumental in this space as well. So safety will continue to be a priority for us, and there'll be an update at least once a month in our upcoming school committee meetings in terms of where we are with safety as a district, and as there'll be school updates as well. Power School. We have transitioned to Power School. We are, and it is a bit of a process. You've heard me talk about this. We are hearing from teachers that they're learning the functionality of the new system. It has a new grading system, new reporting system, and so new attendance system. And so this is a one-stop shop for all kind of aspects of student information and student management. And, there's a lot to learn, a lot to take in. We need to really recognize Donna Cushman and Jeff Weiner and the IT group. AJ Beebe has been in working, helping out. You've heard me talk about Diana Ho, Jimmy Martin, Aaron Bailey at the middle school, Andrew Tetrault, have been really instrumental in kind of helping at the middle school and elementary schools. There's at least one lead teacher in every school that's kind of taken the role of really learning first and then helping others, and we really are grateful for all of their efforts. So that's a quick update with Power School. We are also know that with our opening, our kind of back to school nights, that there'll be opportunities for parents to, either log in and leave a note electronically or even get help in person at the middle school as well. So that's happening as well. So that's where we are there. Happy to answer any questions about anything that I've reported so far.
When was the last time that the schools did the Alice drills and a few of those like shelter in places just because
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. So it's been a
Okay.
couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the kids at the younger levels haven't had any experience at all with those.
No, and that's why, when we say that we have to, get back to the
Prepare
basics
them
and coach.
and yeah.
And so, fortunately, our SROs, Kelly Tobine in particular, has kind of a differentiated professional development materials for K2 and 3-4 that are age appropriate.
Right.
But the first group that needs to get into that space are classroom teachers. They have to kind of re-educate themselves and practice. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what the drill looks like and feels like. And then they have to then teach students that.
Right.
And then we will practice, right? So that's where we're at. So yeah.
I look forward to hearing about it from the students' perspectives.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's always interesting to hear their feedback on it.
It
Yeah.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's interesting to hear their takeaways on this. Yeah. Yeah, it's very valuable. So any other thoughts before we jump into our slide deck? No? We're going to move over to the table.
Thank you. My back will hopefully grateful.
Just want to thank you big folks for visiting us at the school committee meeting.
So welcome, yes. Please introduce yourselves and say your name so the committee knows who you are, what your address, what your, so, Doug and Carrie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. So there's quite a bit of information in our slide deck. We share the slides with you all. There are hyperlinks in the slides that will bring you to other information, okay? I will also, at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, I will send around the rubric, the evaluation rubric for the superintendent. There are 4 standards, and I'll say more about that as we go through, because I link the standards and the indicators in our slide deck, so that when we're in the evaluation process, or when Dorothy Presser's talking to you about the superintendent, my sense is that she's going to say something to the effect of, superintendent should be evaluated not on every element, but on the goals that are set forth by the district and by the committee. So more to follow there. So
Maybe I can't.
let me try.
Dorothy used the microphone to talk to us?
She is.
Oh, she's
Oh, yeah.
not going to use like a random.
Oh, no, she's going to use the state rubric.
No, the goal's already embedded that it does.
Oh, sure.
Can we do that?
Can I ask?
No, go right ahead. No, please. We're just swapping recipes.
So we're moving into the second year of the goals that we're going to present this evening, okay? And so often with our teachers will create goals for 1 year,
teachers create a student learning goal and a professional practice goal, okay? And in the two goals that they set, that's part of their evaluation process. They will often use the same goals, but change kind of the action steps or kind of the information that they're collecting, okay? And I can say more about that as we go through this. But the district goals align with our instructional strategy, which comes from Elizabeth City's work at Harvard, which is broken into 3 areas, right? So she and her research reports that you have to focus on 3 areas if you really want to improve a district. So next slide, please. So you have to focus on quality teaching. And so this is the first of the 3. So it's quality teaching. We have to focus on curriculum, and then the third part is really individualized student learning and supporting individual students and what they may need. So quality teaching for us, so this will stay the same for us. What will change are kind of the what happens beneath quality teaching. So the Wakefield Public Schools will increase quality teacher practices across all grades and schools to support academic, social emotional growth, and equitable outcomes for all students, right? And so every word selected in this goal is really, we kind of labor over this, right? We talk about equitable outcomes. We want to see students get what they need to have success, right? We're not talking about equal outcomes, right? Not everyone is going to get the same grades and attend the exact same level classes. Kids are going to get what they need. That's what we mean when we say equitable outcomes, right? And so some students need more time to achieve at a certain level. Some students need, more support to achieve at a certain level. But the expectation around achievement doesn't change. What changes is kind of the support and that we provide to help students get there. So these are some bullets that we focus on when we think about quality teaching, right? Differentiated professional development, job-embedded coaching, mentoring and induction. I mentioned Liz Doucette a couple times. I mentioned her tonight, as well as in one of our opening meetings. We have an amazing, built into our schedules, we have professional learning community times when teachers can meet together to talk about their curriculum, talk about teaching and learning, and talk about how their students are progressing. So that's something that's built into the schedule, right? It is a luxury that not all districts have. And so that's a plus for us. One of the other things that we need to get back to that has kind of been changed the last few years with COVID is really effective supervision and evaluation. And we'll say more about that as we go through. And Kara will talk a little bit more about consistent implementation of curriculum resources. Next slide. So the evidence of progress that we've made so far, so we have a new professional development plan that focuses on integration of inclusive practices and culturally responsive teaching, right? Culturally responsive teaching is really about recognizing who the students are in your classroom and understand where they come from, what their background is, what their experiences were before they arrived in your class, right? So when you know students, you're best able to connect with them, create a space where they feel like they belong, and they can thrive, right? But that's kind of one of the most important things that we're doing. We are collaborating. We've created, in the last round of our contract for teachers, we've created instructional leadership positions, teacher leaders, as advisories for principals, right? So we used to have this at middle and high. We moved it to elementary, and we've stipended these positions so that when elementary principals are talking about intervention services or they're talking about win blocks, like what I need, you'll hear more about that, they can go to their instructional leadership team and share problems of practice with teacher leaders. Okay? One of the best ways to improve schools is to make problems of practice public, right? And learn together about how to address those problems and then assess your growth or how you're kind of progressing, and then change and adapt, right, based on the outcomes that you're getting. And so, go ahead, Kat. What are you gonna say? So kind of the next steps for us for quality teaching. So that's the evidence that we've made kind of progress in the area. And so the next steps for us are really kind of getting back to broad data collection that focuses really around student growth, right? And so with COVID, we haven't had consistent data in how students are progressing, right? We haven't had, so when we look at MCAS, when we review MCAS, which will be coming up in October, students last year took MCAS in a few different settings, right? And so that plays into kind of scores that students got, right? And so because of different settings, because of interrupted learning, because of interrupted schedules, it has really set us back and really has hindered us in collecting academic data that really gives us a sense of not only where students are, but what they need, right? And one of the things that we're really going to focus on this year is growth, right? The reason we want to focus on growth is because if I want to know how students are growing, we have to know what student baselines are, right? Which really means goes back to not just what a grade is. You know, if my young Mike Boudreau got a high grade, but he didn't have to work hard to get that grade, you know, that doesn't give us a sense of what the baseline was and how he's growing, which is an example of why we're focusing on this, right? So the other part of this is social emotional learning. We've talked for a few years about screeners, right? We use, in my time as a superintendent, we have created different screeners, mental health screeners. Signs of suicide is one that we use that started at the middle. We brought it up to the high school. There was questions about, I think there was a question that came here. Amy, you might have asked it last year, which was, is there a screener, isn't there some type of social emotional screener that we could use at the elementary school? And the answer is yes, right? So we went out, looked around at different screeners, worked with our kind of lead district counselors, Andrew Cedrone and Jen Hart, and we're gonna pilot an elementary screener this year, right? That's an example of, you know, having a great idea. We want to know how kids are doing, and those are things that we're doing to find that out. The youth risk behavior information, you know, students being isolated for the last few years is really concerning to us, right? How they're getting back, back to school now, and how they're performing, we are paying very close attention to. We are seeing that some students have been able to jump right in and are thriving. We're seeing other students that need a little bit more coaching around their stamina, right? They have great skills, they have great potential, but they just haven't been in practice of spending time reading, spending time writing, spending time on assignments to get to done. And so, Kevin, I see you shaking your head. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes, absolutely.
So as are we, and I think we're thinking about how do you coach that, right? How do you coach that, and then how might we coach our younger students, right, as they're coming up? How might we coach them differently? We're thinking about, you know, are there ways for us to coach executive function and study skills earlier, and try to embed that into school day and into classrooms? There'll be more to follow on that. We're also providing a different level of collaboration with our Board of Health. COVID has pushed everyone together, right, in some ways. And one of the groups that we have kind of really been pushed together with is our local Board of Health. We are working with them, and they are now creating a more robust services in regard to community health and community services, which we think are going to help our mental health services, both for students in school and outside of school. So more to follow there. A few other pieces of data that we're going to be looking at are attendance data and grading practices. And you heard a little bit last week about special education. I think if you don't have to look back too far to see the growth that we've made in special education. I think Rosie Galvin is really doing a great job for us. But there's still just a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done in that space. Next slide.
Did you want to ask questions after each goal, or do you want to save questions for the end?
Do you think that your goals are going to feed off of this sheet? Or?
So that was goal. The first goal was quality teaching. Then we're going to go into the second goal of rich and challenging curriculum. But before we did, I just didn't know.
I have a question, actually.
Okay.
I'll raise my hand.
I'll leave it to Tom.
So for years, I've been watching the school committee, and I remember Dr. Smith was like, we're going to start looking at individuals and the way that they grow and not measure like every person grows at their own pace. And then I remember one school committee meeting, Matt Carter made this was before he was a principal, he worked in academy, he made some sort of matrix that the teachers would be able to put in the data. Okay, so we're collecting data on students. What do we do with it? Do we share that with the parents? Can the parents access that? At what point does a teacher come to a parent? Because I've heard stories where a year or two will go by, and then it's, a different teacher, and they're like, well, where was this information 2 years ago? Because early intervention is key. So I guess that's my question, like broad data collection, what is it?
Broad data collection is us getting back to more consistent collection and assessment of student data in regard to social emotional wellness and academics.
So like iReady?
Yes.
What are the tools, I guess, that are we
So
using?
that's a great question. So I mentioned the screeners, right? And so MCAS is one. Attendance rates are another. Grades that students are getting are another part of that. So in a lot of ways, we're looking at and evaluating what we have. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel in a lot of spaces. The Department of Ed just released, preliminarily released, it's not public yet, but their accountability information, right? Which includes, I want to say 8 metrics that include, assessment data, wellness data, attendance, EL progressions, subgroup progressions. So those are the things that we need to get back to and make more public. So that's big picture. So you asked a few questions within your statement.
Right.
The other statement that you made, which was part of, I think, the question is, how can parents get this information, right?
Right.
Any assessments that we are giving in school, parents have a right to see. So any assessments that we give in school, parents have a right to see, okay? And so I'll say that straight away. So when we're talking about academic data for MCAS or individual assessments, parents have a right to see that. So if we're talking about ST Math, or if we're talking about really anything that we're collecting, we absolutely have, parents need an opportunity to see that. And yes, Matt did collect data for his intervention block, and he did it during academy as well. Some administrators jump into the data space more keenly than others, right? And so, but anything that's collected, parents absolutely have a right to look at, okay? Most of the time, we're looking at data just to see how kids are progressing, right? And we're going to share a little bit more with MCAS. We're going to look at MCAS this year differently than we have in the past. And what I mean by that is we're not just going to look at scaled scores are. We're going to look at student scores or student raw scores by strand, and we'll say more about that in October. But does that make sense?
It does. I just was curious, like if it all when you say, I read broad data collection as one item, not the below items feeding up to that. So I just was wondering if we're putting all this information in some sort of student record. I don't know where it goes, and does it spit out a total like your kid's a 50 and falls here? You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand.
Well, I think in some instances it does. If everyone's taking that assessment, you can get a sense of grade level and or normatively where your child is shaken out.
Yeah.
But there is no kind of giant repository where, everything goes in and you get a, one report out. Pre-COVID, we were working, Kara was working very closely with Paul Minuti, right, and creating a dashboard, which we previewed some of that here at school committee.
Yeah.
We had a district or a student dashboard, and we could look at data in different ways. I want to be clear about our intent in looking at data. We look at data for two reasons. One, to assess how we are supporting students. That's a we, right? How administrators and teachers are supporting the progress of teaching and learning. And the other is how students are doing, so one is to assess their performance, the other is to assess our performance, right? Which is an important piece.
Thank you.
Stephen?
So just to piggyback off of what Amy said, and because she brought up a good point in that, so I'm assuming you collect data for the district. I assume a number of sort of instructional leaders have access to that data to see where we are in a given space, whether it's the instructional leadership team, the curriculum coordinators, and you get to see trending in what's working and what's not working against the broad populace. But within that, you do have a very, it ceases to be macro and it gets micro on the student level. And there is data there, but you don't necessarily have the same personnel looking at that person data as you do looking at the macro data for trend sets.
That's exactly correct.
While you say that parents absolutely have a right to that data isn't necessarily useful without insight. And so I think that I get access to that data maybe in a teacher, in a student meeting, in a teacher meeting. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I think part of that would sit in, are we giving the teachers the tools that they need to sort of understand the assessments that we've placed on their student populations, and how can they communicate that effectively to the caregivers that are in front of them when they're asking questions about their students? Do you think that we're successful in that space?
Yeah, that's us getting back to the work, right? And so we have not reported, as I think teachers have desired in the last few years due to COVID. Like the traditional, I think of for example, an elementary meeting where an elementary teacher would sit across from a parent at a kidney-shaped table in a small chair most times, right? And be able to take out a folder and say, this is Cal's work. Let me show you, some of his writing. This is some of his math work. And, based on, some assessments, we feel like he is above grade level, at grade level, give you some indication of how we're progressing. We haven't been able to do that in ways that we have wanted to due to COVID. And so I do think teachers are proficient in that area, and I do think we need to get back to that. I think that's part of the post-COVID work, if that makes sense.
It does.
So that's in regard to the individual students. In regard to the macro, do teachers have all of at every level, do they have the ability to look at, student growth percentiles and all the information that comes from MCAS or from Edwin or from any number of the data sites that are within the Department of Ed? I would say no, not unless they work with it every day.
Yeah.
And gets really complicated really fast. And it can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it can be overwhelming for parents. I think parents sometimes can feel like, what does this mean? I would just like to have a sense of how they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And that is where I think, so when I say we need to look at raw scores, one of the goals of looking at raw scores is just to get more of a concrete sense of, this is how the test is constructed, this is how many questions, how many points, this is how it works. Right? We want to give parents a greater explanation to hopefully have a greater understanding of how the test is constructed, MCAS, but also how their children are doing. So that's the goal of that. So we can talk more when we come in with MCAS data.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think the trick with giving it's hard because like the group, like looking at the macro data, is definitely something that is really important. But from a individual, parental perspective, every parent wants obviously to know how their kid's doing. But the key, and I think you mentioned this before, the key is looking at growth.
Right.
And what's important to communicate to parents is not just the data point where this is what the kid did on this test. It's comparing it to what your kid did on this 6 months ago, and then tracking through. So I think what parents are concerned about is a lot of parents just want to be able to know, at what point, if that growth is slowing, if the growth is stagnant, if there's no growth, that parents want to know if interventions have to be put in place to make sure that growth goes up. And I think the trick with the individualized data is finding a way to communicate to parents when that growth is stagnant. So I agree with that, the focus on the growth. And I think the challenging thing, and I hope we can solve this problem, is to come up with a way to communicate to parents in a way that not just shooting out a raw score. You could get a 55 out of whatever on this, and that means they're proficient on this level. It's the idea that there's some kind of mechanism where you'd be able to know, okay, my kid's in third grade, my kid has gone from here to here in math, and that's the trajectory where they can feel confident that this is okay.
So what's going to help bring some clarity to this conversation is hearing from the curriculum coordinators, the coaches, and also the principals, right? And they will kind of help by bringing artifacts or examples that will kind of hit this home or make it more clear, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll move on to goal number 2, which is focused on rich and challenging curriculum. I'll just give kind of like a high-level overview because we have a lot to get through, and I want to make sure that we hit on everything, knowing that you can feel free to ask questions at the end. So the rich and challenging curriculum goal is one that we've continued from last year as well, and it's really rooted in our curriculum review process, which has a cycle for each content area. And the bulk of it is really just about prioritizing the agreements that we make at each level in terms of what we're going to teach and making sure that's consistent across levels and departments, and just creating that trajectory for students that the curriculum builds from one grade level to the next. And then just going back to what we were just talking about, how are we assessing students based on what they know and are able to do? And we've been really trying to nail down assessment tools the past couple of years to make sure that we're getting the most accurate data. And I do agree, area of growth for us is sharing that data with parents as well, just so that there can be more of an understanding of how their students are doing and what they might benefit from moving forward. But I have to say the last couple of years we've really been trying to focus on getting the right data and making sure that it makes sense and that we're using the right tools across the board. So some evidence of progress that we've made in this area. We've talked a lot about our math curriculum review, which had year 1 of implementation last year, is going into year 2 this year, and I think our teachers are coming in a little bit more confident with the resource this year, and we're devoting still a lot of professional development time to help them get up to speed. One of the things that I'm really excited about this year is we're, as part of our professional development plan, dedicating collaborative time for teachers to plan units together. So again, that just brings people together who are doing the same work across different schools to basically plan together and share their experiences with one another, so that we can be sure that we're having that consistency across the elementary schools and different courses. We did present to you last year that we started our ELA curriculum review. We actually had a lot of the pre-planning take place last year. This summer we focused on our administrative team and just doing some research review on best practices in reading and writing instruction. We've been able to make some pretty significant headway in terms of foundational skills in our pre-K through 3, which I think we're all really excited about, by bringing in the Hegarty program, pre-K to 2, which is a phonemic awareness program, and then taking our foundations program, which again is a phonics-based general ed program up to grade 3. And we had an amazing turnout of teachers who took time this summer to reset. And even though Foundation's been in the district for a while, we did kind of like a reset professional development for all of our teachers. So we're really excited about that. And with both of those things, have been able to work with our curriculum coordinators to create a scope and sequence, so it's very clear when teachers should be starting what, and just continuing to keep pace together. And if teachers, for whatever reason, are struggling to keep pace with the curriculum, that's why we have our coordinators and our coaches to help support them to troubleshoot or make different plans. Also really excited, this is like a feel-good night to talk about some of these things, that we completed our science specialist teacher build this year at the elementary level. So we have 2 new teachers who started this year who strictly teach science across K through 2. We piloted grades 3 and 4 last year. It was very successful. It's a collaborative effort between the classroom teacher and the science specialist. And we've created a schedule of science classes happening K through 2. So now we have that happening regularly across K through 4. And just to stay with science for a little bit, that will be our next content area that we'll be doing a curriculum review on. And so our science specialist teachers, our STEM curriculum coordinator, Valerie Drynan, and our 5 through 12 curriculum coordinator, Joanne Marks, will take a lead in that review process, which we're just in the pre-planning stage right now. And then we've talked about assessment, continuing to monitor how we're assessing our students, how we're using that information. I know there's been a heavy focus with our principals on data team meetings at the building level, just talking about student progress and growth and how we're supporting their needs. And then just going into our next steps. Sorry, I'm just going to look here because I can't see that far. So just continuing the work that we've started around looking at our resources, diversifying texts and our social studies and ELA areas for greater representation. I talked about the continuation of math. SEL curriculum is always something that we've kind of started, then stopped, and started and stopped. We're still wanting to stay with that. We have a lot happening, I think we would say, in different pockets across the district, but a consistent SEL curriculum to allow for common language, common approach in the general ed setting is something that I don't think we've gotten over the line yet, so something we have our eye on. And also just continuing to think about points of acceleration in math, which we've talked about here as well at our middle and our high school, and even coming down to our elementary as well. So I think I hit on all those next steps, but before we move on, I just want to make sure that I answered any questions that you might have.
Good question, and if it needs to wait till the end, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, we've gone through 2 years where we learned an awful lot. We learned where we had deficiencies, technology, how we're going to use technology. That was a challenge way back when. I know we probably want to forget about it. And way back when I talked about, let's not look at it as a challenge as much as an opportunity for us to kind of reassess how we deliver our education. Right. And I think, how we teach, how we're constantly reassessing continuous improvement in curriculum. That's all great. How we measure ourselves, what's the proper way to measure them. But I would want us to make sure that we're giving the tools to the kids that provide them with the best chance of success. And that goes beyond how we teach. It's basic tool sets and technology. You're talking to a guy who can barely turn on a computer, so my time has passed. But for them and for many of our instructors, we've gone through a great learning curve. So I hope we can keep a focus on technology and how that can aid us in creating all of these goals. 'Cause I just see that as that would be a wasted 2 years in some ways if we don't take advantage of what we learned through that process. So just FYI.
Yeah, the instructional practices is such a huge piece as we're going through the review, and we're talking about not only what we're going to focus on, but how it gets delivered in the most effective way. So, and then that, along with, I think, our technology plan, which we continue to update. Yep.
The math curriculum, after the year one with the new math program, we're probably going to get a presentation on that
Yeah.
as to what the data coming out of that says, right? Is it going to use more than just the MCAS score? Is there another subset that
Yes.
we're going to measure against?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So they will use information that they collect as well in addition to MCAS. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then the third goal is focused on individualized student learning.
So, again, there's 3 parts to, improving, the district. This makes up our instructional strategy, and this is the third part of 3. The first one, was quality teaching, which is really about supporting teachers. Second was about, resources and curriculum, and the third is really about focusing on the individual students as learners, right? And so this arguably is where the rubber hits the road, right? So things look great often in design, but it's how, students use them, right? When we think about learning, it's about changing behavior, right? When we think about students learning math, we want them to be able to think differently, do things differently because they have experienced some type of learning experience in class, right? And so, and that's different for different students, right? Their availability, their engagement, how they see themselves, their academic identity are all kind of tied into this. But it's really about our teachers and our administrators kind of working together collaboratively to support one another, to understand how kids are participating in their learning in this space. Next slide, please. So evidence of progress in this area in regard to individualizing our learning experiences are, I think, pretty significant. One of the things that we've done is we've increased our counseling services across the district. Hasn't happened by design, right? And so a lot of the positives that you're going to see that we're going to report on as progress or evidence that we're making progress in these areas have come in kind of years of building, right? And so Kara, I'll give you an example in curriculum. Kara used the example of our science specialist that we've hired. We saw in science, in our STEAM and STEM areas, right, in science in particular, at elementary, kids were not having a consistent experience in science like we would hope, right? So through negotiations, we created a differentiated model, and we worked on the budget to resource this model. We brought in 2 teachers to teach science at elementary in 1 year, and then 2 teachers the following year. So we did it in a way where the budget could afford it, and then we brought in space. So what we've done is we've brought in essentially science experts to best teach and give students a more continuous science experience at the elementary level, right? Again, it's probably 3 years to kind of build this soup to nuts, but that's the time it takes to make this change, right? And so that's an example of this. But for example, when we talk about individualized student support and SEL work, we don't only bring in curriculum, we bring in personnel that can do kind of preemptive work around counseling support before things can grow into greater problems or greater spaces where we need to support or create different levels of resourcing. And so that's a quick there. Next slide, please. Next steps for us are really for us to think about what does, tiered supports look like. Again, this goes back to baselining, right? What are students? What are their baselines? How are they performing? And how are we thinking about growth, right? We have to assess student schedules to maximize time. I used the example of a little bit earlier about some students just need a little extra time. Some students, need a little extra support, meaning someone sitting beside them to work with them differently, right? And so we need to figure out what kids need. That's what WIN stands for. And so we're creating intervention blocks, consistent intervention blocks at all of our elementary schools. And this is the first time that we really have done that. And so in post-COVID, and our teachers, our ILT teacher leaders, and our principals have been consistent in collaborating together about how that is coming together. And they will be able to report more when they come and talk about their school improvement plans and what intervention looks like. So, next slide.
Yep. So this is just what Doug just referenced. Our school improvement plans were all worked on this summer. We worked as an administrative team. Again, Doug and I were able to present the district goals to the group, and then our school improvement plans are designed off of those. And so the principal groups worked with their teams at each building. They'll work with their school councils on this. They brought them to their ILTs. So we've just linked the most updated ones here. But as Doug just said, that's in an upcoming meeting. I think we have it slated that pre-K and elementary, ideally, if everyone agrees, would come in October, the first meeting in October, and then we'd have secondary at the second meeting. So more to come on this, but we just wanted to see the connection there. And then the same with the next slide around our professional development plan, which we've gotten out for this year. It's the same type of structure where we have our 8 half-days throughout the year that are all differentiated by department and facilitated by our coordinators and directors. So the professional development plan's linked there. You can dig in a little bit more if you want to. And we also offer, we started up last year too, offering optional PD series after school hours for anybody who wants to extend their learning. We have 3 different offerings this fall, which are the district provides the opportunity and issues PDPs if teachers choose to participate. So that our first half day is tomorrow, which is going to be largely focused on Power School. And a lot of our teacher trainers got together and created some nice professional development that's differentiated based on where people are at.
So we know that this is a lot of information, right? And so if you could just stay with us, because, we broke this in half. Normally what we would do is do district goals, and then we would do superintendent goals, right? And so the reason that we're doing both together is to try to get this queued up so that you can go into your time with Dorothy Presser and really kind of have a little bit of information. And not just a little information, a lot of information, right? And so we've also worked hard with our admin team. This is the earliest our school improvement plans have been done. Things are coming together. So our superintendent goal really, so the first superintendent goal is really to prioritize standards based on instructional practices that engage and meet diverse needs, right? These practices will promote academic, social, emotional, and equitable outcomes for all students, right? This is the goal. Next slide, please. So this is the progress that we're making in this area. You'll see on this, you'll see kind of 1B, 1D. So the superintendent's evaluation rubric there are 4 standards, okay? And the standards are, standard 1 is instructional leadership. Standard 2 is management and operations. Standard 3 is family and community engagement. And standard 4 is professional culture, creating a professional culture. And so when you see, for example, 1B, there's a standard, and then there's an indicator beneath the standard. So 1B, instruction, is the indicator, and the element is student engagement and meeting diverse needs, right? So this will become clearer when you get the rubric. You don't have to know this right now, but we have kind of woven these 1B, 1D, these indicators in, so that when you are evaluating us, we hope that you will look at these indicators and think about the progress that we're making in these spaces, and maybe questions that you might have that relate to these indicators, right? So it's just a prompt to try to direct you to different parts of the rubric. So we're making, again, significant progress in this area. You've already kind of heard some of them. This year we're looking at the ELA curriculum review, and we're going to continue to really analyze kind of our adapted supervision and evaluation model. A few years ago, Kevin knows this, but a few years ago, probably about a decade now, more than a few, districts had a choice. to either adopt the state supervision and evaluation model, adopt it as it is or as it was. It's been updated several times since then. Or you could adapt what was presented and kind of tailor it to and create your own supervision and evaluation manual for your district. So Wakefield was one of a few districts that chose not to adopt the state model, but to adapt it and write their own, okay? And so it looks very similar to the state model, but we're at a point now where we really need to compare the two and think about what's been updated at the state and what might need to be updated in our model. And it might also prompt the conversation, do we think about going with the state model? And that's something that we're going to need to work with the WEA on, right? And teacher leaders on. So more to follow on that. So that's a quick.
Doug, are there any state model components that we are required
Yes.
to use? There are.
So with teacher evaluation, there are 4 standards as well,
Yeah.
like superintendent, right? So there are 4 standards. The first is curriculum. The second is teaching all students. Third is professional.
There's professional
Culture.
culture slash like basically parent communication.
Yeah,
which is the fourth.
yeah,
Which is the fourth one.
And I can't pull the 4th right now, Kevin. You got it?
Oh God.
That's all right. We'll cover it. We'll get back to it.
That's all right. That's all right.
So-
Okay, thank you.
No worries, no worries. But so yes, there. So the Wakefield model has those 4 components, just like the state model. So if you wrote your own evaluation instrument, it had to have components that were similar to. So the architecture is very similar. So next steps for us in this area, we really need to assess time on learning. And kind of the needs of students. We really need to look at schedules. We need to figure out our evaluation rubrics. I just talked about adapt, adopt. We need to use data more judiciously to improve student growth. And so this is information that you've heard. Specific accountability kind of references that we're going to be making. We're going to be looking at how our English language learners are doing. That population for us is just exploding, as well as student attendance. The second superintendent goal, I'm just flipping on my screen here as well as there. So the second superintendent goal is really about addressing the challenges here at the high school. So when I was hired as superintendent, seems like a million years ago now. It was only 4.
2018.
So when I was hired as superintendent, we were not accepted into the MSBA process, right? So one of my charges was, could we please figure out how to write a statement of interest to get the MSBA to kind of invite us into the grant process so that we could build a new high school, right? That was number 1. And the reason that is because we were in danger of losing our NEASC accreditation for the high school. And so the NEASC accreditation, what they've cited is that the facility is at a place where it has put our accreditation in jeopardy, okay? So this goal really kind of connects to that work, right? Which is a year-over-year work and commitment that we are doing. So kind of progress that we've made in this space is that we were accepted into MSBA. We've progressed in regard to our NEASC accreditation. We haven't lost it, but we're kind of at the lowest level it can be before losing it because of the physical plant. Do you guys have a question?
No, I'm sorry. He caught me.
I feel like I'm a teacher and I'm in class. And I need
I was
to talk
very
to you after
embarrassed
class.
about that. I didn't know the standard. We just wanted to. Sorry,
It was Nari, yeah.
I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention, teacher. Sorry.
Totally Kevin's fault.
It was.
Sorry about that.
I'm not.
No, they need a movement break. We're talking to them.
It is. That's why I said
You're
it's a
not
lot.
using your phones, I hope, in class.
It's a lot of
I was doing that
information.
earlier,
So
Mr. Chairman.
So the other part that often gets missed when we're talking about a new high school is that parts of the building are not ADA accessible, right? We have students that are in programs that Rosie talked about in our last meeting that may not be able to access certain parts of the high school, okay, because of accessibility issues, right? That's a huge deal for us, huge deal. And so we've made a lot of progress. We've collaborated with finance and facilities. I would also argue that in the last number of years, our relationship with FinCom and town leaders has really kind of grown in this space as well. So we've progressed in this area, and we're really pleased. You know, next steps for us are really kind of setting the stage to get to town meeting so that there can be a vote and this project can be approved, supported. And to do that, we also need to stay connected to NEASC. NEASC doesn't let you go far. So we will be working with NEASC on kind of some professional development, on a workshop on accreditation. And they also invite us all the time to please come to other districts to work on their accreditation teams, because it's, I don't want to say free labor, but maybe free labor. But you also get the experience where you can bring that back to your own district and kind of help in that area as well. And so, you know, we've talked about the education plan that is kind of the backbone of all of the information that was reported last week from SMMA. All of those spaces relate to the educational plan that was created by teachers and the administration here at the high school. And we will collaborate with finance and facilities to ensure appropriate budgets, right? So that's the other part of this, is that, you know, we've just settled 6 bargaining units, but we need to continue to advocate for the budgets that we need to support this work. So the last goal, and we're moving quick here, we're almost done. We will refine, create a comprehensive and efficient system of communication, right? While all these things are happening, you know, communication is one of the most important things we do. And I know some of you spoke graciously about how we have communicated, but we still need to be better in this area, right? We need to report what's happening. We need to kind of report and plant seeds for future work that we're doing. You know, if I go back to, you know, we were talking when we talked about health a couple meetings ago, probably about 5 meetings ago. We talked about how health has grown in the district, right? How it was only in a few grades a very short time ago, and now we're closing in on more of a wellness model that looks like a K through 12 model, right? And so we need to keep track and communicate the what and why. So this is not different than the comments that I've made about construction. We need a new high school, not because we just want to have a new building. We need a new high school because we need students to be able to access this building. We need students to be able to learn in an environment that is kind of current in 2022, that can help them thrive. And so, more to follow.
Oh, do you want to
Okay.
break? I was just going off.
Yeah.
So some of the progress around this area, one of the things that we're continuing to work on is communication that's accessible to all of our families, and that's in our translation services. Our English learners have grown significantly in the community, as Stephen, you mentioned earlier. And so it's just trying to reach families as much as we can. We have one of our ESL teachers in the district, Colleen Anez, is also serves to do some ESL coordination. And she's been working on a tiered system of translation that we're trying to get out to our teachers. She's starting with administration, just talking about the different ways we can have quick on-the-fly conversation, how we can translate documents, and how we can have just more effective translation across the board to just loop in as many families as we can. So that's something we have improved on, but I would say that we're not where we want to be yet, but more to come there. The live Zoom calls, again, we're going to continue with those. I think we got good feedback on those. They've gone to every other week at this point for this year. And originally they started strictly on COVID, but we're trying to think about different ways, different topics to bring in, maybe even connected to our school committee meetings or what's happening in the district. And we're also thinking about our communication that goes out via email and currently working on different templates for how people will view information that comes via email, just trying to make it worthwhile and easy to quickly scroll. That's all a work in progress there too. And Doug already talked about our the original goal had referenced iPass. We've already moved on from that, launching Power School, and then continuing our collaboration with Board of Health, Town Manager, and the Guilfoyle communication team. And then next steps. Did you want to speak to this, or do you still want? Okay. I was just trying to give Doug a break because he had so many slides in a row. The next steps for this goal are to continue to just everything I just said, really just improve our communication, but with a specific interest on district safety and protocols. There's always an ongoing interest in that, and I think now that we're in back to kind of more normal circumstances, trying to get back to those procedures and protocols and communicate effectively with parents there, as well as assess our emergency and crisis manuals. And then I already spoke about the Zoom calls and email communication.
Questions? Yes, Cap.
Point of clarification, were these goals last year's goals?
So
have any of them changed from last year to this year?
So the areas of progress are the progress that we've made on last year's goals.
Last year's goals.
So the goals will continue this year. The areas of growth are kind of next level. It was the third slide after each goal.
Okay.
Right. So it was goal, progress, basically areas of growth.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's the construct after each of the 6 goals that were presented.
Okay.
3 in regard to the district goal, 3 in regard to superintendent's goals.
Mm-hmm.
And on the superintendent's goals, there's kind of prompts or kind of prompts denoting what aligns with what standard and where on the rubric to help with the evaluation process.
Okay.
Yes.
On slide 10, something jumped out at me. The adoption of social thinking and zones of regulation. The
Yep.
social thinking piece, is that Michelle Garcia Winners?
Yeah.
And is it only in pre-K, or do we have it? Why can't we?
We could. So I think we wanted to highlight it here because Shannon and her team have done just a really nice job of adopting the social thinking curriculum widespread across the preschool classrooms. So there is common language happening across the school. Same with zones of regulation. For those who don't know, social thinking is just it's a SEL curriculum that's just really explicitly teaches students in the moment ways to support their interactions with each other socially and in the classroom setting. And then zones of regulation is another specialized program that really focuses on students identifying their feelings and just being able to put words and language to how they're feeling to help with their regulation, emotional regulation. So there's visuals attached to both programs, language, and so we just wanted to highlight that's a really big task to take on school-wide, and that the preschool has done that. It could make its way up to other grade levels, and that's kind of what I was referencing earlier, how we've done SEL really well in pockets, but we haven't gotten that streamlined approach yet in terms of like a consistent program across the elementary level. Second Step is probably our most used program in the district, but we have our school psychologists mainly taking a lead on that and teaching lessons or doing it in small groups, but what the Doyle has done there is more of a classroom.
Have you ever
type
brought
approach.
Michelle in for PD or anyone in that social thinking?
Not since I've been here has there been social thinking PD, but I know that the preschool did engage in social thinking PD. Maybe it was one of my first years.
And I know some people there have gone out as well.
Yeah, they've probably gone out.
Yeah.
It's just a great, I've been following it for years. It's a great, and it can go friendship circles and how, and just
excellent.
given COVID where kids were isolated in very important developmental years.
Absolutely.
We could use a refresh.
Definitely. Yep.
I just thought of something that could like hurt meeting one of these goals. You talked about equity and providing equitable opportunities for students. I was wondering if you have had any. I know it's really early; it's like 10 days in or something like that. I was wondering if you've had any conversations with teachers about if there's greater inequity is the wrong word, greater differences within students in a classroom on all levels, high school, elementary, middle school, compared to pre-COVID. Meaning, like, is there a wider range of ability within one classroom? Basically, maybe, obviously we need more differentiated instruction to deal with that problem. I just didn't know, because it would kind of make sense with COVID that you'd have severe delays for some students, other students might not. I didn't know if that, I know in the classroom I'm noticing it. I just didn't know if that was something, because it's just a potential problem to look for, so we'd be able to look at some more differentiated instruction.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes. Are we seeing it? Absolutely.
Okay.
Are the range and experiences, I wouldn't say abilities, Kevin, but I would say experiences, right? And so I think that the gaps and student needs have been exacerbated because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but in terms of thinking about equity or equitable outcomes, right? It really makes us think about, well, if we shouldn't lower expectations, we should think about how we provide different levels of support for students to meet those expectations.
Right.
Right? And that language, what I'm using is, Rosie Galvin uses this language, right? And so, high expectations, high levels of support so students can meet those expectations.
Yeah.
Is the range of needs greater than we've ever seen? Yes. Okay. Is it created difficulty for teachers? More than ever before. Has that stressed classrooms? Yes, no question. How are people handling it? I think that we're in day 10, September, and I think we're thinking about resources and how to allocate and reallocate and move people around to support. But I can tell you, teachers are working harder than they ever have at it.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm agreeing with you that we're seeing that range.
Yeah.
And there's not, the statement doesn't make a good outcome, right? Like, so, we want equitable outcomes because we can write this, doesn't mean that we're gonna, hit it out of the park with these greater needs.
Yeah.
I think it's more about us as adults being cognizant of this and thinking about success differently for different kids.
Yeah, abilities was the wrong word. I meant kind of where they're at right now individually within, based on what's happened individually for them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Kev.
Dr. Lyons, and looking at the goals, there's clear evidence of your leadership as in the educational front, an instructional leader, communication with the community and with other leaders in the community. Where do you see in your goals kind of your role as a leader of this really complex, large organization in terms of the teachers, the other administrators, your role as the leader of that organization in that sense? For instance, in goal number 3, it talks about engaging and supporting all members of the community, but then it mostly talks about, I think, some outside audiences, the community, Guilfoyle, etc.
In terms of communication?
Yeah, where would kind of your role as, the leader of this large, complex organization kind of fit in these?
Yeah, it's kind of a general question, and so I'll try to answer it, and if I don't kind of maybe speak to what you're thinking about, maybe you could say more. Okay? I think in regard to our communication and in regard to our relationships, I think it's our job to try to model the core values and behaviors we want to see, right? And so I think when we work with students and families, I think we are always gracious and respectful. And I think we try, when we interact with teachers to be the same way, the same way. And, you know, we often end every email with, if we can help with anything, please let us know. Our job is to help, right? It's kind of like this servant leadership. And so I think those are kind of principles that I think guide our thinking. It doesn't mean that it's always kumbaya, and it doesn't mean that we don't disagree. And we do, right, disagree. And so, but it's how we disagree. I think one of the goals in that area would be to disagree better, right? Yeah. And so, you know, especially we think a lot about this. We think about how we want adults to model the behaviors we want from kids. And I think I am very much, as being the superintendent, responsible for working toward that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that is kind of what I was thinking or what I was wondering about, because I don't see that written out here, and I just wonder maybe in future iterations as we think about that could be articulated,
Sure.
I think, a little bit more, because, that's a really critical role and a great goal to continue to work for and for us to consider and evaluate.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, just to add to what you're both saying, I think I agree just in terms of capturing the informal nature of relationships that get built over time, and just the communication, not necessarily just the formal communication that happens, but I think about Doug, our principals, just the conversations that happen to really build rapport and relationships on the fly, popping in the classroom, popping in the hall, just hearing about a situation, in a less formal environment, that really makes a difference too. And I think, I just know that that's important to you, and I think you do it a lot. So I think a way to capture the less formal communication would be good.
To kind of, I guess, piggyback kind of on that question is, what is the process now for teachers to communicate with administration or to you? Because when I was looking at one of the things, it said, forgive me, I don't know what slide it is on, but it was a link where it says curriculum and instruction leadership, and so superintendent's up there, then superintendent, then the coordinators.
Oh,
and
the leadership, curriculum leadership chart.
Is that the process in which they're supposed to reach out if there's that's just strictly for curriculum?
Yeah, that's just strictly for curriculum.
That's an org chart.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
so what exactly is the process right now if they did want to, for lines of communication? Is it an easy process or?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think we're a pretty flat administrative structure. I would argue that we're pretty accessible. I think we're in classrooms. I was in a preschool class today. I was at Galvin yesterday hearing about some struggles from one of our two of our young students over at Galvin. And so I think that we are around, not just for students, but for teachers as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the principals and us are highly accessible, highly accessible. And I think that's one of the things that we're most proud of.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I'm most proud of, right? And so, someone had someone needed to have some help this afternoon, and they shot a text and we took care of it in minutes.
Okay. No, I just wasn't sure if there was a formal thing, or informal.
No, I would argue that that org chart does not represent a chain of communication.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
got it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, sir.
As you've gone through goals, I'm curious, as you've sort of reflected on last year's goals and you look forward to next year's goals, where I assume you've had to pivot on a couple of things. Where do you think you've had to sort of make your biggest adjustment in terms of where you thought we'd be and where you needed to sort of re-aim and maybe think again?
I think academic achievement has been one of the most difficult areas for, I think, all of us. Mm-hmm. When I say us, I mean, teachers, administrators. I'm putting us together as the Wakefield Public Schools. I think needs of students, academic achievement, social emotional needs are the three biggest areas where we've had to pivot, where we've had to
think differently about, what we might be able to achieve, what we might be able to do, based on the needs of students and based on the range of needs. And so I think that's been the biggest adjustment for us. That's from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's just, you're asking this on the fly and I'm answering on the fly. And maybe if I had more time to think about it, I might add more to that. But I'd be happy to, what do you think, Kara?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to. I think I'm so proud of how even everything that's gone on the last couple of years, how we've still been able to not get so lost in management and operations that and lose what's important. I think we did keep, even though it might have been in a different type of structure, I think that we really tried to still keep an eye on curriculum and instruction and our students and social emotional needs and academic needs. Maybe not at a rate as fast as like Doug is saying that we would want it to go, but I don't feel like we necessarily dropped anything. We just maybe adjusted our focus areas.
Looking at the goals, it almost looks like a linear line between goals and like outcomes. You can draw some pretty straight paths.
Yeah.
That's where I get skeptical, and I'm just like, there had to be like a ball that got dropped or like two or something that had to have sort of shaken you when you went, because you reassessed your goals. You said, okay, do we meet this? Do we meet this?
Yeah.
I just thought there would have been like one or two where you were like, we were hoping to get here and we ended up here, and so we're going to do it this way differently. But your answer of sort of instructional supports and stuff, that makes complete sense. I think that's sort of to be expected. I wasn't sure if there was something a little more out of left field.
The other thing that we've really tried to do as well is to bring students to school committee, right? We've tried to intentionally book adults coming with students, right? Because it reminds us, as much as we can talk about COVID protocols or masking, right? You can be overwhelmed by, we say management and operations, just managing the details, right? When that for the last 2.5 years has been just a huge part of our work, and we've had to try to compress that to make space for seeing and hearing students, right? Because when we do that, we do better work. We do better work for students and families, okay? And it fills our heart, right? And it reminds us why we come to work every single day. And so,
I would say that communication has never been as important, certainly in your careers here, than it has in the last 2 years. Because everybody was starving for communication, assistance, connections that they just couldn't have like they could before. So I think you did a great job, and there was never a more important time to do it. So kudos.
Yeah. I would also say that if you look at other districts and other school committee meetings that were happening, school committee members were not doing school visits. You all did school visits last year. School committees were not hosting students, generally. Some were, many weren't. I think people have been wrapped around the axle in management and operations and have been stuck in this place. We've really worked hard just to try to make a little space for instruction, a little space for seeing and hearing students, and really hearing from them. So what does learning look like in grade 3 at your school, right? They tell it better than we do. Yes, sir.
So a couple thoughts. First of all, thank you both, very much for the time that you put into this, and I know that we'll be referring back to it probably at each meeting for the month of October, certainly during the larger evaluation and goal setting process. So thank you. A couple of thoughts came to me, sort of bouncing off Stephen's question and Kara's answer. And I would agree that nothing got dropped, but things did pivot. And I think one of the things that I think we collectively agreed was a huge priority was to spend as much time as possible with kids in classrooms. But to pivot, the priority became safety. And I think there was a loss of that, not an intentional loss, but with with that as a goal to bring as much normalcy, especially in year one, when there was so much of non-normalcy. So I think right now, I think we're really in a unique, exciting position of really pivoting back. That I don't think anything was dropped, but certainly things were re-prioritized and put off in different ways while we really focused on student safety and staff safety. I mean, how many MOUs did we go through with the collective bargaining groups between with the second half of FY 20 and 21 and even into the beginning of 22 must have had probably 8 or 9 different operating agreements over making sure that students felt safe and welcomed, and making sure that staff felt safe and accommodated in being able to do the jobs that they did. So I only say that because I want to agree wholeheartedly, Kat, nothing was dropped, but I think Stephen's question was spot on. There were things that were pivoted, and we now need to make sure that we're pivoting back. I think we heard it from Shannon Blacker at our last meeting when she talked about that she's now seeing kids coming to her for the first time that really didn't get the opportunity to have the services that they normally would have got. The very first group of kids that didn't get 2.5-year-old services because the opportunity wasn't there. There were so many obstacles to allowing that to happen. So I think one of the things that is really refreshing in talking with both of you and members of your team, and even hearing from Shannon and Rosie at our last meeting, is the candor in which we're able to say and acknowledge the types of things that we need to do better at. I think that's the first step to any healthy family having conversation, bringing things to the next step, is being able to say, this works well and this really doesn't. So it's really refreshing to hear the types of goals and evidence against goals, things that we achieved, things that we really didn't get to, or didn't get to yet, or didn't get done enough. So I think I just want to, Stephen's question, I just wanted to follow up on that I think there was a pivoting, and I think it was pivoted well. I think if we didn't focus on safety, then there wasn't going to be trust and confidence in people coming back to buildings. And that was, and the world was, we were all, we used to say all the time, right? We're swinging without a net, right? There's no playbook on how we're supposed to do these things. And the professionalism and the competence that not only the administration brought, but every teacher brought. I mean, we had some really earnest conversations with the Unit A leadership about the MOUs, and then no one was trying to get out of work. Everyone was trying to get to a comfortable place to be in work. And that's certainly a credit to really the Wakefield Public Schools, and with an eye on the ball. And now working to pivot back to services that weren't able to be provided through no necessary fault or dropping the ball. That didn't occur. But there's a realization now that we need to bring these type of services and bring this type of attention renewed again back to the opening of this school year and the type of things that we have as expectations for teaching and learning. And I look forward to it in the broader spectrum of our conversations with Unit A leadership in the types of working conditions and the types of conversations that we're going to have around the next group of collective bargaining talks. So I just wanted to again thank you and to follow up on that thought, because
of course
I think it's important that the community appreciate that we are candidly and transparently acknowledging the types of things that we need to do better at, and because that's nothing more important than that work. Any other thoughts or questions for the superintendent or the assistant superintendent?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Come
you so
on back
much.
to the Come on back to the to the big kids table.
We'll have you back again sometime.
Yes, we'd like to have you. We'd like to have you back at every meeting. Are there any other items under item 9, Dr. Lyons?
I do have a quick HR update.
Please.
The Lehman report.
The Lehman report. This just in.
This just in. So we have 27 positions posted currently. I believe 2 of the positions have been filled, so we're likely down to 25. But 11 of those positions are sub positions, 6 are food service, 6 are ISPs, 2 are for Wakefield Academy, and 2 are for coaches. Your question that you're going to ask about ISPs, how does that affect service for kids? We're backfilling those positions currently with other ISPs. And I believe we have candidates for 2 of the 6 and more information to follow.
So getting better every week, right?
Getting better every week. So
Great.
Thank you.
you're certainly welcome.
Okay. Budget items. Item 10, there are no budget items, I believe, or no gifts on tonight's agenda.
No gifts.
Okay. Item number 11, subcommittee reports. Finance and facilities, Mr. Boudreau.
Yeah, we haven't met since our last meeting, Tom, and I think we're waiting till.
Right. Well, we just met last week, too.
That's
so-
true, it was just last week as well. And the liaison, obviously, you've noted a couple of community forums coming up. I'm talking about PBC more than
Yep.
anything else on the high school project, so it's coming along. We're getting there. Looks great.
Under Labor Relations, since last week, we have not met either, but the Labor Relations Subcommittee will be meeting next Tuesday, a week from today. Student Services, Ms. Lehman.
We have not met. I believe we're meeting October 4th at 5. Does that sound right?
Okay, great. Policy, Mr. Ingles.
We have not met. We are still trying to iron out when our regularly occurring meetings will happen. Scheduling has just been tough, but we hope to nail that down. I know we have a lot of things sort of in the fire. So hopefully going to meet soon in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Any liaison reports anyone would like to speak to?
I don't. I just have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm ignorant. I think I'm the youth council or something. Was that them?
No.
Good. Okay. Because that would be awkward if that was them.
That would be terrible.
Okay. Good. Okay.
It's not them, no.
All right. So I should reach out to figure out
I
somebody.
can send you the names and email
Cool, all
addresses.
right.
Yep.
That'd be good.
Sounds
Thank you.
good.
Youth Council is town-specific as opposed to Student Advisory, which are all students of Wakefield Public Schools. Youth Council can be comprised of students not just in Wakefield Public Schools, but also in surrounding public or private schools that just live in Wakefield.
Got it.
Who would be a good contact for him? Catherine? Is that who
No.
runs it? Who runs the group?
Yep. It's in my email and it's on the tip of my tongue, but of course it's not here now. I can get it to you though.
Okay.
Okay. So item number 12, future dates and agenda items. I just included a couple here to make note not only to the committee but to the community. And the next couple of months are only going to get busier. As Mike alluded to moments ago with regard to the new high school project, the committee recall obviously last Tuesday evening we had a report from the architects and consultants. And they are continuing to wind down that work and get prepared for some significant presentations in the very near future. But September 27 and October 18 are the next 2 large project status reports to the community. There will be community forums. So certainly would encourage any member of the community who's interested in really getting an appetite for this project as it is winding down and getting very much ready to be presented to the community at large. This will be probably the next two terrific opportunities to get as much information as is available. As was reported last Tuesday evening to us, that their consultants' next report to the permanent building committee is October the 6th, which is when they're presenting the budget. So I think the community wants to be particularly in tune with that meeting. October 6th will be the presentation to the permanent building committee. It's our intention, and I spoke with Dr. Lyons about this earlier, that we would invite the consultants to our meeting on October 20th to give that same presentation to the school committee and to the public permanent building committee. Aren't on camera, for example, and all of that. So 2 weeks later, which I'm sure will be widely covered in between, but nonetheless, 2 weeks later, the consultants will be here before us giving a similar budget presentation. So that's becoming more and more real as we've been talking about this and really working for the last couple of years. The consultants also mentioned that it's very likely that the community vote would occur in January. So certainly we are winding up to that point of information. So I'd encourage all of the next couple of meetings, September 27 and October 18. Our school committee workshop on the superintendent evaluation will be Tuesday, October 5. Wednesday, October 5. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. My bad. The next school committee meeting will be Tuesday, October 11. And the following Wednesday will be our goal-setting session that we talked about earlier tonight, Wednesday, October 12. So those are the immediate couple dates that are in the calendar for the next couple of weeks, in addition to what we need to do to support the superintendent evaluation process. So, are there any other thoughts that members would like to share, or things that they would like to add or request to be on upcoming agendas? One thing that's going to be happening in the month of October, we have a request out to our legislative delegation to attend either the first or second meeting in October and share with us news from Beacon Hill, which will also be a wonderful opportunity to inquire of them. All three of them have been very supportive of our MSBA work. But certainly it's always another opportunity to discuss that when we have our state senator and our two representatives in the House. So that will happen in the month of October as well. Ms. Lehman, you had asked about inviting the CPAC folks in. We've reached out to them also for one of the October dates. Yes.
Oh, I have more.
More? Great.
I know Stephen has those two Safe Streets to come in. Did you ask for that?
Safe Streets, yeah, there's two organizations. There's the Safe Routes to School, which is the
Safe
state
Routes,
organization, and we've had that, of course, I forget her name. I'm horrible with names. She came in and gave us a presentation about sort of the assessments that they've done on existing schools. I think they did the Galvin, the high school, and aside in the Woodville. I don't think they did the Dolbear. I don't think they did Walton. I don't think they did Green. No, they did Greenwood.
They did Greenwood, yeah.
So that's the state. In town, we have the Safe Streets Working Group, which is a bicycle and pedestrian safety group, which is sort of a grassroots organization. So there's also them, and then there's the Youth Council, who's also doing some work in this space. So it's a busy space. We should absolutely invite somebody in and talk to them. Safe Streets has not been here before. They'd be lovely people to talk to.
Well, we had a middle school student hit by a car last week on a hot street. That's not safe. We can't have that. So I'd like to see if we could partner with someone to, the student was pedaling home from middle school. So maybe crosswalks, I don't know. I'm not familiar in the space, but I'm not. Yeah. But, and then
If I had my phone.
to invite, and this could happen in the new year, the schools back like we did last year when the principals would come and visit. Doug had mentioned that in his presentation.
Right. Well, that's also on the calendar for the principals to come in to do the annual report on school improvement plans.
Yeah, but remember last year we had them come in with students. Yeah.
Throughout the course of the year.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yep,
That was nice.
yep. That will certainly happen as a matter of course. Yep, absolutely.
Can we get an update on where we are at with the survey, student survey with the logo? Because I haven't heard anything.
It's going out tomorrow morning.
Okay, and then it will be open for a week.
It'll be open for a week.
So,
9 through 12 tomorrow morning.
okay.
And 8 will go out as well. It will go out at Galvin.
So will that be on the agenda for a vote for the next school committee meeting? Because we'll have the
So,
survey results.
so we should have all the results in, and if they are all in and we're good, then I think we should put it on the agenda.
It'll definitely be on either the 1st or 2nd October meeting.
Okay.
Yes, it depends on the timing of the results coming in and the administration's ability to gather results
Right.
in a comprehensive way to be able to speak to them well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going around the table. Kevin, want to know?
Oh, wow. I would, yeah, I think it was earlier stated by someone in the room about the stamina issue, that they noticed that there was a, that our students, seemed great. Like, the 4 kids right there seemed really excited to be in school and back to normal. Then I forgot who it was, but someone mentioned that it seemed there was a stamina issue in the classroom. And I think, yeah, that is, I think I saw it with I'm seeing it with my own kids, and I see it with kids I teach, that I think everyone is really happy to be back to normal. But I think that it's like a muscle that atrophies. I think there's definitely something that, we've got to get our kids back into that classroom routine. And I just think as, even as parents, as teachers, school community members, really have to be, thinking about that, that curve that we got to get back to. But yeah, that's what popped in my head. What about you, Mike?
Just a couple things. I think it's great we're starting to have conversations with the Unit A. Everything else is done. And that was a Herculean task, getting all those done. So kudos to everybody on that. So looking forward to getting that process started soon. And just want to congratulate Doug one more time. He's a great asset for us. And it's glad we're going to have you around. Thank you.
Steven?
I think I had a sort of a question comment on the, I think before COVID times, we used to have, Thursday night is back to school night for the elementary schools. I'm thinking before COVID, the elementary schools were split out, and they weren't all on the same night. Because I'm hearing a lot of childcare questions from parents that have a kid in lower grades and upper grades, just thinking in years to follow, maybe if they were staggered a little bit so that friends can, I'll watch your kids, you watch mine. Oh wait, no, we're both going to the same. Yeah, so, but then again, I'm also hearing that high school kids are really making some money on kid watching duties. So I suppose it could, I suppose it could go either way. Education front, DESI today finalized the recommendation for twice yearly screening for dyslexia and early literacy. I guess it won't take effect till next year. But I know we talked about it before, so just know that it became official today. And then in town, this Thursday is the Hispanic Heritage Celebration at the BB Library, put on by the HRC. Last year was amazing. I expect nothing but the same from them this year. You could sit at any one of the local restaurants and watch the music, and it's fantastic. And it's just great to, again, as we discussed a couple of times tonight, the demographics in Wakefield are changing. And so sort of the more culturally knowledgeable of those around us in our community that we can become, it's just all the better. So bring the kids, families, it's great. And lastly, October 8th is Town Day, and that'll be another great time. So people should go to that as well.
Amy?
I don't have any comments.
Okay. Kevin?
I'm all set, thank you.
Eileen?
Hold on. I was just finishing up what I was going to say.
Oh.
No, I.
You thought Kevin was gonna say something, you'd have
I did. I was
2
like, oh,
more
I have time.
seconds.
I gotta write down. I was writing down a date so I didn't have to read it off my phone. But I'm the liaison for the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and the next meeting for that will be on Thursday, October 13th at 7 p.m. So I just wanted to say that. And then I just wanted to say, too, congratulations to Doug. And I wanted to share this earlier, but I didn't want to, like, interrupt everyone, and then everyone had said something. And but last week, for anyone who gets the text messages, everyone saw that bus number 9 was very late every day. Those poor kids on bus number 9, which were mine. And so I had reached out to Doug last week, and by Friday, everything was like smoothed over. The school, the bus company had figured everything out. But Doug made a personal phone call to me to see that the kids were getting off the bus every day and how they were doing, and made that personal connection to make sure that the kids were happy and everything. So that was great. So I want to thank you for that, because that goes a long way. And then I just want to say that I loved seeing the kids come in tonight. I definitely want to see more of it, and I really appreciate, Tom and Kevin saying, for them to bring their issues here and not just report out things, like the calendar, and really just kind of report out what's really happening in the schools, and feel free to, use their voices. And so I really look forward to that, and I look forward to hearing more about all the things that are going on in the schools. I'd love to even see, I know it's primarily for the high school, but I would love to even see maybe a middle school representative or something like that as well. So it'd be kind of cool. Elementary would be adorable.
Things to think
about.
Absolutely.
We'd have to start our meetings earlier.
Yeah.
We could have a Doyle representative. We could, yeah. Sure. Have a duckling in every week. Great. Are you all set?
Yeah.
Great. Well, let me just join my colleagues in congratulating Dr. Lyons and thanking you for your service to the families and students of Wakefield. It is not necessarily an easy job, but in many ways it is incredibly rewarding, even on the worst of days. And it certainly goes without saying that anyone gets into the field of education does so out of love and passion and improvement for the lives of young people. And it is a pleasure to have you as our leader to be able to bring us to the next steps in doing that, and to work and to build stronger collaborative relationships with every educator in the district to be able to do exactly those things. So congratulations and thank you, for your service, and congratulations for your reappointment.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, September 20, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Good night, all. Good night. Have a pleasant tomorrow.
Has the adjournment?
Somebody else said that.